With thanks to the City of BRIMBANK across our neighbourhood and the world, the Sports Hour with Max Hatzoglou on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Hour on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM. Great to have your company. I'm your host, Max Hatzoglou, and today we've got a massive show coming up. We got Anna Pavlou, sports writer for various different places, including St Kilda Football Club, also involved at the Footy Almanac. She's going to come on to preview the AFL season in the men's coming up and also talk a little bit about the AFLW season, which has been happening. We'll have Charlie Gill also joining us there to talk and provide some comments on the AFL season and also the AFLW. So we're looking forward to that. Followed by that, we're going to get nutrition coach and personal trainer Connor Kennedy coming on to talk a little bit about nutrition. So an interesting topic that's involved in all our lives. So that will be interesting to hear. Then followed by that, we got Patrick Morrow coming on, who's going to talk a little bit about the cricket and also tennis and a few other sports that are happening in the world right now. So we look forward to that, and I hope you enjoy the show. Now it's time to introduce our next guest, a special guest onto the Sports Hour. It's sports writer Anna Pavlou. How you going, Anna?
Good, Max. How are you?
Good, thank you. And it's great to get you on the show. I've been seeing some of the work you've been doing in the media. It's been awesome. So it's a pleasure to have you on finally. So thanks for joining us.
No, looking forward to it.
And we've also got Charlie Gill here today as well, just to Anna's coming on to talk a little bit about the AFL season. And we thought it'd be great to get Charlie on just to provide some of his insights. So thanks for joining us, Charlie. How you going?
Always happy to be here. Thanks, Maxi.
Awesome. We'll kick it off, Anna, and we'll talk a little bit about the AFLW season, which has been happening over the last few months. What's been your take on the season so far and some of the highlights that have come from it?
Oh, it's been a pretty interesting season. I've been following the AFLW now since the beginning and really have been getting involved, which I'm very lucky to be doing. And personally, I really did think North Melbourne were the team to beat at the start of the season, but Collingwood have just absolutely dominated the majority of the season now, haven't lost a game, and have really figured, I guess you could say, they've found quite a good balance in their team. And I think a lot of teams in that top four bracket, Freo, Brisbane as well, who I really do rate, have found quite a good balance now that the AFLW is producing pure footballers now that kind of the competition, the commercialisation has died down, and it is now we're getting footballers who are coming up from playing all the way through their juniors and actually, full blood footballers,
Yeah.
Chloe Malloy is just an absolute gun, just as an example. But there are a lot of players like her who just have really been taking the AFLW to that next level that I think we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, absolutely. And Collingwood's had a pretty good season. And they've won 6 straight out of the 6 games they've played. Do you see anyone beating them? They play Brisbane this weekend. But do you think that someone can sort of beat them in the finals, or are Collingwood a comfortable favourite for the premiership?
I think they're a comfortable favourite, as said, but I think playing Brisbane, I tipped Brisbane early on to be a contender. I think that their structure as a team is pretty unbeaten. Obviously, let's see how they match up this weekend, but they've got quite a pure football structure. They play quite a flow kind of game that we haven't really seen a lot of teams be able to master over the few years of the AFLW. So I think it'll be a Collingwood-Brisbane grand final, but again, if Collingwood are on this path, I don't really see much stopping them now.
Yeah, and
where do you think the grand final should be played? Because I've seen a bit of conjecture surrounding which venue it's going to be at, because some people think it should be at the MCG, like the men's, and others think that the AFLW should sort of forge its own sort of identity by continuing to have the grand final played at whoever finishes higher on the ladder. So what do you think about that?
Well, I just love the tradition of footy, and I think that it should be played at the MCG because, I mean, I think we're all Melbournians. So, that just like how special it feels to be at a grand final, to be at a sporting event in that regard at the MCG. I think that will take the AFLW to another level, because they have played a couple, they've sold out every other ground they've played a grand final at, but taking it to the MCG kind of etches them into history as a serious competition, I think.
Yeah, it's a good perspective you come from there, especially the MCG. Obviously, it's a large capacity at 100,000 people that you could fit in there. So it would be quite an unbelievable event. Oh, well, obviously this year, unfortunately, probably won't be able to fill the stadium to its maximum capacity. But it'll be interesting to see where that ends up being played on April 17. With the season, Anna, is there anything that... there was a question I wanted to ask you. Sorry, I just popped up in my mind and I remembered. And that's about the standard of sort of the level of and the standard of AFLW over the years. It seems to me that it's really improved from when it started to now. And now I'm like, you notice just some remarkable plays that are even better than the men at times. And it's really starting to improve. And obviously that's come with the growth of the game. But are you noticing the same thing as well?
Oh, 100%. I've been doing a bit of work with St Kilda Footy Club, and at the moment, obviously, the focus is on the AFLW and just seeing the behind the scenes. I've been there now for 2 years, so behind the scenes, how they've picked up. They've obviously there's more money in the AFLW game now, so they are able to afford more technical coaches, better facilities. They're professionalizing the game more, which, that behind the scenes stuff, as well as a lot of the clubs will have their junior programs that feed into their club, St Kilda's got Sandy and all that. So all that behind the scenes stuff, as I said, is really now showing on field. And obviously, I'm not going to lie, it was difficult at the start to watch it, because there was, years ago, it was a lot of stop start, and they wanted to bring those bigger sports stars into the game just to get it up and running and commercialized and get more people on board. But watching someone like, Georgia Patrikios, who plays St Kilda, she is just a pure footballer who has grown up with the game. And that, that's where you go, yeah, that's absolutely the football that we expect now at this level. And I think that's due to all the programs behind the scenes, for sure.
That's
I've got am I all good to go, Max?
Yes, go for it, Charlie.
Okay, I've just got a question. I was speaking to the coach of the Fitzroy Football Club's women's team the other day, and I was asking her about implementing the sort of rule changes that we've got in the men's game into the women's game, referring specifically to the man on the mark rule and having to stand still. And she said that she thinks for now that would probably be to the detriment of the women's game, because it's not sort of quite at that level yet where it would be necessary. So my question is, do you think that in terms of when you were talking about the AFLW playing their grand final on the MCG, that is sort of legitimizes it. Do you think that sort of in going into the future, for the AFLW to sort of be seen as legitimate as the sort of men's comp, it would have to have the exact same rules as the men's comp, or if the AFLW could have a few separate rules?
Well, I think that the men's rules are already difficult enough for the men, from what I hear and see and watch every day now. So I think,
correct.
100%. We can talk about that later, because I've got strong opinions on that. But I think there's always going to be a difference between men and women's football. I personally don't play football, but I do obviously watch both games, and I just think by adding those rules in, it's already quite a technical game to learn. And as I said, the game isn't still, or hasn't got all pure footballers yet. There are still cross-coders, and there are people that they're still bringing in to commercialize the game. So I just don't think it's worth it, because we're already seeing such class. And over the years, I can honestly say I really now enjoy watching the talent of women's football that wasn't there 4 or 5 years ago. So I just don't think, I mean, men obviously have been playing for 160 years now, so they have adapted. They can adapt better than women, but I think it'll just jeopardize the game more if they're going to put all these technicalities when it already is quite a technical game in the 21st century. So I just don't think it's really worth it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
Yeah, me
especially
too.
with like the women's game only in its early part of its journey, like it should sort of, the rules should rest for a bit there, and the game should be just played, so you get a bit of a sample size of all the trends and get a bit of data, and then after a good portion of it you can go from there. But I wanted to move on and ask you, Anna, a little bit about last week. Charlie and we went through our AFL season preview for the men's competition, and we went through our riser, slider, and premier, and also a surprise. We were interested to know, have you got a riser and a slider and a premier for this year?
I do.
Yeah, we'll kick it off with this riser.
Riser,
who have you
sure.
got?
I've got Carlton. I do love Carlton. They are my second team, but I do think that they may have a chance to actually come up this season. What were they, 7-10 last season? But there were quite a few games in that middle area where they were lost by less than 20 points. They had just won a few games. So that talent and that raw ability was shown. Obviously, excellent recruiting of Adam Sarden, Zach Williams, huge pickups for them, which will really change the dynamic and I think take a lot of that pressure off Paddy Cripps' shoulders, because as much as they are an emerging side, a lot of that pressure through the last few years really has been on his shoulders. And so I think that they will be a really handy addition. Interested to see how Harry Mackay goes. Kicked, I think, 21 goals last year. So he does attract a lot of that football, but I guess it really depends on, there are some fantastic defenders in the competition, but I do think this could be a breakout season for him again to really take his game to the next level if he has that support from their kind of new and improved midfield group, I think. And, of course, can't forget about Sam Walsh. He is absolutely an elite player. What is he, third or fourth season now? He's just...
Third, I think, yeah. Yeah,
he's just... The way that he came into the game, obviously Carlton haven't had a lot of success, but he came in and he just fit into football, so just adapted so quickly. He just plays like a seasoned veteran, and I think he's only played less than 50 games anyway, but he's just got that quality. And if Cripps can remain injury-free alongside him, add a couple Williams across the field, I just think they'll actually be a force to be reckoned with in 2021. And of course they've got Jones and Wiedering down back. I really do rate Wiedering. I wish they didn't waste a few years of his career trying to find a spot for him. He's just a pure defender. I think he always has deserved a spot there. So, he's locked that position in finally. So I think he will be a key to a bit of a better defensive game. I think they were losing games, as I said, by less than 20 points. So I think if they can kind of lock up that defense, I think they can really tighten their game.
Absolutely. And I know sitting here right now that Charlie Gill's mind will be ticking quite fast as he's a passionate Carlton supporter. And I actually had the same riser as you, Anna, last week. So great start. My one area of concern, I'm just looking at their list and their lineup, and it's their ruck. They've only got Pitt in it, and he's a very young ruck. So that just popped up to mind, and he needs to. They're sort of relying on him a bit.
Well,
Charlie,
we've also got Tom De Koning, who's injured right now, and Tom De Koning's even
another
better
youngster
now, I think.
Yeah.
And he's going to he's going to get better and better. He was already showing last year sort of what he was capable of. So he's injured at the moment, and that's another concern for us is our injury list.
Yeah.
It's so annoying, but but you are right. We do have questions around our ruck spot. But Pitnet's definitely capable, and Tom De Koning's exciting. But yeah, go on.
I think
Absolutely.
the modern football, successful football side, you look at sides like West Coast of 2018, Richmond, Collingwood of, just the past few years, that success really does spawn from having a seasoned or a veteran or just a really strong ruckman. So I think if Carlton can, I'm not writing them off for any way. I do think they will climb the ladder this year. But if they can blood a few of their young guys, as you said, decoding all those in the middle, in a couple of years' time, they will be an absolute genuine premiership threat. And I stand by that. You can come back to me in
Absolutely.
a few years.
Yeah.
I
Well,
hope you're right.
we'll be keeping a closer eye on your predictions as the season goes on, Anna. And yeah, so we'll get to your slider now. Who do you think's going to slide down the ladder this year?
I think Charlie will like this one too. I've said Collingwood.
Oh,
Yes. Oh, I hope you're wrong.
I know.
Why
Sorry.
is that?
Look, they finished 8th last year, had a fantastic first week of the finals, and then obviously were beaten comprehensively by Geelong in the second week. But it's really, and I hate to be so harsh, but they really did have a terrible summer. They had one of the worst draft periods the club has had in a long time, and I do believe Collingwood, well, they prove it on and off the field that they are a very strong side. They have a lot of support and everything, but the stuff that did happen off field, really, that's the big question mark. And that's why I do think that there'll be a slider, because let's see how all of the off field issues reflect in their playing group. Will they disperse? Will they unite? That's kind of my biggest question mark. Obviously, the loss of Treloar, that key goal kicking midfielder, I think unfortunately that will be felt. And then, of course, Tom Phillips, who really didn't get much of a chance at the start, has so far at Hawthorn really dominated his first game. I think he had 34 touches or something. So, I mean, sometimes that just happens with players, but that obviously may be a bit of a loss felt. And Jane Stevenson, I think I know he definitely fell away after his absolutely outstanding first year. Rising star, was really blooded to be the next Collingwood great, but unfortunately, the ties have been cut there. But he did add that depth, which I think again will be missed. And I think those, as I said, those culture problems, they may impact the group. I do think Pendlebury is a fantastic leader. He has been a fantastic leader for his whole tenure at the club. But I think it's going to be a new challenge, because there has been so much scrutiny for now, a couple of months now, since the finals and all the Maguire issues and all the cultural things. So, but on field, I think DeGoey playing in the midfield will have to cover Treloar, but that, of course, I think that'll really hurt the Pies in their forward line, because DeGoey is such a key element, both up forward, but also is an absolute gun through the middle. And I think they need more from Mason Cox. I think he's shown, he's had games where you sit back and you go, wow, what an absolute powerhouse. He cannot be stopped, but there's far and few of those. So you want that consistency from the club. And if he steps up, I think possibly the rest of them will. But again, he's been there for a couple of years now and we haven't seen that. So I really wouldn't be surprised if that's a struggle for him again.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think you're spot on. I before their preseason game last Friday night against Richmond, where Richmond got up by about 4 points, before that, I was like, to be honest, I was thinking of putting them as my slider, which is quite crazy because I follow them. And but anyway, I was just being true to myself. But that game surprised me, and I thought, wow, we actually might go all right this year. But I think a lot of it, Collingwood relies on Mason Cox a lot. As you said then, if he does well, I think he's a big difference to the team when he's up and firing. So, yeah, absolutely.
I was going to mention that practice match, but yes, you've said it exactly. I do think they were impressive, but again, I think they put Darcy Moore up forward, and, I just hope, as much as I am a Geelong supporter and Collingwood aren't my favourite team in the world. I don't want to see them fail because they do, considering all of their issues over the summer and the mess ups of the trade period, they do still have a very, very strong list. I really rate Darcy Moore. I think Brodie Grundy will bounce back, and I do think Jack Crisp is one of honestly one of the best defenders in the competition at the moment. So as much as they are my slider, I don't think if they go far, if they do drop down the ladder, I don't think they'll be down there for long.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. And Charlie Gill, who was your slider from last week, Charlie?
My slider from last week, in terms of what do you mean, the reaction to the community series?
No, your team.
As in, all right, who I said last week. I said West Coast.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, I know that you've got to shoot off early, unfortunately, because you've got another interview to do for your newspaper, which is up and coming. But you're going to be back later on in the show, so we'll say farewell. But thanks for joining us for your brief time that you could.
Thanks for having me, Max.
Charlie.
And thanks for having me, Anna, as well. Cool. See ya.
See you, Charlie. Now, Anna, I wanted to get to your premier now. Who do you think will be the premier?
Well, I'm saying this, I am a Geelong supporter, but I am saying this not in a biased way. I do think that Geelong will be the premier in 2021, and we can come back to this conversation later, but
don't mind it.
I do think, I do personally think Geelong were fantastic in the trade and the draft period. They do have one of the best lists on paper in the competition at the moment, but of course, a list on paper, it can only go so far. It's now up to them to really show us that they can gel as a side who has the 2020 and the 2019 common medalists on their list now. So it will be an interesting, I guess, viewing to see how they work together, because they are, Tom Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron are quite similar but differing players in the sense of, like, they will both take that. When he was at the Giants, of course, he takes the number one defender. Hawkins takes the number one defender at Geelong, but together, I think it may be a good mix because of you think about it, they'll take the best two defenders and you leave Gary Rowan open by himself, who gets your third or fourth in line. I think that is quite smart recruiting in the sense of we're freeing up some players who did have a bit more pressure on their shoulders last year. Gary Rowan was quite inconsistent, but I think the addition of Jeremy Cameron, particularly, and if we do decide to play Isaac Smith up forward a bit, will really relieve a lot of pressure that Rowan just could not shake last season. But absolutely, I think, again, ageing list, but obviously the loss of Harry Taylor and Gary Ablett does rejuvenate the side again. But again, I think that there's quite a perfect balance between those really, really experienced, decorated, players with quite an eager group of kids who are coming through the system who, honestly, I think anyone who's at one of the, leading sides at the moment is very lucky that even if you're not getting 22 games a season, you're getting to be around and play a couple of games and just get the culture of, the absolute greats of the games, Dangerfields, Ablett's last year, of course. So I think, recruiting Higgins, Smith and Cameron was absolutely fantastic by the Wizards, Stephen Wells. But I think, again, it's going to be really interesting to see Sam Simpson, O'Connor, Radigalia, Parfitt, Narkle, Constable, who haven't actually played as much football as the best 22 last year, but had a lot of that time in the hub to be with the elite, to train with the elite, to live like those absolute elite. They will really come into their own. And I think if there's never been a better time for Geelong to really get through. And I think if they can shake those blues of the Tigers, I think Tigers have won the last six of the last 7 we've played against them. But I think if they can really get through, if they got through the prelim voodoo last year, so one step forward. They've all played in the grand final now. They've all experienced getting to the final dance. But I think now it's just learning how to play not a manic style of football, which we know Richmond plays, which has been very hard to beat for the past 4 years, but learning how to bring that control back into their style of football, which they obviously lost against Richmond last year. But I do think there's never been a better time for Geelong to push for a flag for Chris Scott and for the whole club, really.
Oh, that's a pretty strong argument, and I think you've raised a lot of really good points in that. And I fell into the trap personally last year when I thought they're an aging list and they're on the downhill slope. But they proved me wrong big time, and I just couldn't believe it. How well they went, and now I'm sort of sold that they're a very good team. And with the inclusion of Jeremy Cameron, Sean Higgins, and Isaac Smith, they're just three guns, which I don't know how Geelong and Wells managed to get them down, but quite remarkable. And I certainly agree with you. I think they're a hot chance. Them, Port Adelaide and Richmond, I think,
Absolutely.
are a great chance. Thanks for those thoughts. Now, to your surprise, did you have a surprise for the upcoming season? Anything that you think will happen that is sort of left field?
Well, we talked a bit about that man on the mark rule before. I hope that will be out of the game as soon as possible. That is probably, in terms of a surprise, I think my biggest surprise would be if that rule sticks around for more than 5 rounds. I think I've listened to a lot of press conferences. I've heard a lot of players and teams that are already planning and showing out on field. They are working around that rule, that in order to keep, they're moving their defenders to man someone else, because if you're on that 50 mark, you are basically dead weight. You are nothing. You can't move. You have zero impact. So there's already teams working around those rules because, so I think it would be a surprise if that lasted more than 5 rounds of football, because I can probably sit here and guarantee that will cost games of football, and I don't want to be sitting here at the end of the season saying that's cost Geelong, Richmond, Port Adelaide, Brisbane, whoever a grand final, because that's not how our game should be played. We are one of the only games in the whole world that constantly feels the need to change their rules. And I've always said growing up, the beauty of AFL is just how pure and how free-flowing the game has always been. It's obviously becomes technical over the years, but the beauty of it is that we're not rugby, we're not soccer, we're just a game where we see pure talent, we see pure fitness all the time. And I think if we keep, playing with these rules, it's just going to become another commercialized game, and that's not what footy is to the fans.
Absolutely. And I think you're right, because it just looks so strange when you're watching on TV. I haven't been to a game yet and seen it in real life, but when you're watching it on TV, it just looks pretty strange. How they're not able to move in a sport that demands high levels of fitness, that the game has stopped that. It's pretty funny how that's the case. And what I'd like to see is, I hope that it'd be a bit of a bombshell if they remove the rule midway through a season, just because of stats and like the history of stats, and like this was during the stand manning the mark time, and then this is post standing on the mark. I just think what I'd like to see is a change right now, and I think just to give players standing on the mark a 1 metre radius. Obviously you can't go forward, but like a semicircle behind them of 1 metre where they can move. What do you? I wouldn't mind that. What do you think? That just popped to mind as you were talking about.
I like that. If you know what, I mean, I think we'd all agree we'd rather it go back to what it was. But if we have to keep this rule, a 1 metre radius wouldn't hurt, because I feel like someone's going to sneeze and it's going to cost them a 50. Someone's going to scratch their head and that's their arms moving. So I think I would love to see it gone straight away, as you said. But if they are going to keep it, that wouldn't even be a horrible fix, I guess you could say. But I hate that we have to have this conversation about a stupid rule in place. But anyway,
it's look, I understand where you're coming from, because they keep changing the rules every season pretty much, and it's just that's not sport. That's, you don't change the rules every season, and a lot of fans, and I'm sure you think the same, that just leave the game alone. A lot of people have that view, and yeah, I'm for that one as well.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about your sports journalism, and you're up and coming still in your career. And you mentioned before how you did some work at St Kilda. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, and also some of the other work you've been doing?
Yes, thank you. I have been very blessed over my journey. I'm only just turned 20, so I'm very blessed that I've been afforded so many opportunities to get kind of a head start in the industry, I think, is same as you really, Max. So yes, I've actually just got my job at St Kilda back. Very lucky.
Wow, well
I'm
done.
now, thank you, doing the VFL media. So that should be a really exciting job this season. I'll just be doing some boundary writing and doing the match reports every week. And they've actually very kindly asked me if I'd like to write a couple of feature articles every few weeks with a few of the AFL boys. So that's been a really, really fantastic experience so far. Being in a club, I've been there since I was in year 12. So I'm very, very blessed to be able to see how a club operates, and if that is something I do want to go into the future. Because when I was little, I think journalism back then, 15 years ago, was just, oh, you write for the paper, or you do TV, or you're in a club. But these days it's now you have to have the ability to do all of those things at once, which I think I'm lucky through my university course that we are learning how to be a social media manager, or be media for a club, or be on TV or radio, or do other things, because I think that's the way of the future now. So
Yeah,
I think with you as well, you're doing a lot of things that aren't just pure writing, which I personally started as my thing. Started writing with the Footy Almanac. I think you did too back in the day.
Yeah, John Harms, yes.
Good old John Harms. Love John Harms. He's a great character, and it's been really, really helpful getting me started really in this industry, because it is a tough industry to break into.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm also working at the women's game at the moment, which is under Inside Sport, who's the Herald Sun Sport magazine. So I write, and I'm lucky enough to interview a multitude of different athletes, and that's been a really beneficial kind of outlet for me to learn about other sports. I did tennis interview last night. I've done cricket, motor racing, you name it. I'm lucky enough that I've been given opportunities to interview and write about different sports, which has been fantastic. And then I've done, I don't like to talk about myself much, if you can't notice. No, I'm joking. No, I've been very lucky with everything I've done. I've done a bit of VAFA, Victorian Amateur Football Association, writing, and going back onto radio in a few weeks for them.
Awesome.
Do the Sunday wrap-up show talking about amateur footy, which is another one of my passions in sport, which is really exciting.
Yep.
Yes, I've done a fair bit of things, but yes.
Yeah, that's quite impressive. You're only 20, as you said, and to have done, experienced different aspects of journalism is quite good. Is there a story or piece of work that's sort of been the most memorable, or your favourite, or most significant?
I've got a couple. I'm just thinking they've come to my
Yeah.
head. I was
put you on the spot.
Sorry, no. I have a couple that always come to me. I was published in The Age when I was 16, which was a story about Cardinia Park, which was something I was extremely proud of, and that's probably one of the moments I was like, yep, this is the path I'm supposed to be on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
I have interviewed Patrick Dangerfield at the 2017, Cargie Graves Geelong Best and Fairest, which was a pinch me moment. I think that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I went to Bob, my first ever press conference that I went to. I was interning at 3AW radio. And they're like, oh, we're going to go. I think it was like my second day, and I was there for a couple of weeks. They're like, we're going to this press conference at Whitten Oval. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And it was Bob Murphy's retirement press conference. And that was like, he's absolutely a big, like a very big inspiration in the football world for a lot of people. So that was another moment I was just like, oh, I'm pretty lucky. This is pretty cool. So yeah, they're definitely my standouts. But I'm blessed I interview. It's not just about the big stars. I get to talk to people in the amateur football and cricket and people, you know, who've had multiple sclerosis who follow their passion and play sport. And I talk to everyday people who I can just, sometimes I sit back and I just go, yeah, I'm so blessed that I get to do this. And it's a really, really rewarding industry to be in. I think you could agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's some great sort of stories there that you've been able to put together and be a part of. So that's quite awesome and well done on all that so far. And yeah, that's quite amazing what you've done so far. I'm just trying to get to mind what I had in mind. But that's okay, Anna. Thanks very much for joining us today. It's been great to get your insights and everything, you know, on AFLW and also the AFL men's competition coming up, and also to hear a little bit about your journey so far in sport. So thanks for joining the Sports Hour and coming on today.
Thanks, Max, and good luck for the rest of the season. I'll be listening.
And we thank Anna Pavlou for coming on there and sharing her thoughts. It was great to get her on to chat a little bit about the AFLW and the upcoming men's AFL season. So we thank her for coming on once again, and also a thank you to Charlie Gill for joining us. Now we're going to go to our next guest, who is the nutrition coach and personal trainer, Connor Kennedy. I hope you enjoy it. We're about to talk a little bit about nutrition right now. And we're very lucky that we've got Connor Kennedy, who is a nutrition coach and personal trainer. And he's on air right now here to talk to us a little bit about nutrition. So thanks for coming on, Connor. Welcome to the Sports Hour.
Thanks very much, Max. It's great to be here once again.
Lovely. And I'll kick it off. And what are some common recommendations you would give to people in regards to healthy eating?
Oh, look, the perfect diet does exist. It actually does exist. But in terms of life, you know, we all have things on. Not every day is the same. Some days you'll have, you know, big sports games or social events or, you know, and so you can't get your eating perfect. Now, there is a set of exact macronutrients and micronutrients that we should be aiming for every single day, and numbers in the 5 food groups that we should be aiming for. And so I'll try and direct my clients towards those things, depending on how far away they are from it at the moment. But the short answer is everyone's different, and everyone has a different life and circumstances. And so there's no easy answer to that, Max.
Yeah, it's that's true, and I guess that's part of the nature of it. It's everyone's a bit different, so you know there's never sort of one answer for everyone. What are some of the can you talk us through what a balanced diet is and how important you know the different elements of it are, and can you tell us sort of how the intake should be broken up, you know, coming into our bodies?
Yeah, sure. So a balanced diet, first of all, it's important to note that we have our macronutrients, which are proteins, fats, and carbs, which we should be getting enough of every day. And then we have our micronutrients, which are things like vitamins and minerals. But then we also have our 5 food groups, which are grains, meats and meat alternatives like proteins, veggies, fruit, and dairy. They're our 5 food groups, and we want enough food from our 5 food groups every day. So we have 3 overarching things that we have to aim to achieve in our diet if we want the perfect diet every single day. And we get those things from certain foods. So obviously, we need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the fuel for our sporting activities. That's how, our body uses energy. We need those for sporting performance. That's very, very important. We need protein to recover from sporting performance. And, not just sporting performance, but just to repair anything in the body, broken tissues. And then we also need healthy fats, which, people get confused about. They're found in things like nuts and avocados and good fish, fish oils. And so we need those three things in terms of macronutrients. In terms of micronutrients, which are our vitamins and minerals, they're mostly going to be found in veggies, okay? Now, for our 5 food groups, it's recommended that we have 5 or 6 serves of veggies every single day. Like, regardless of what type of person you are, man or woman, young or old, big or small, it's recommended you have 5 to 6 serves of veggies a day, which is quite a lot. And I think 95% of Australia isn't getting there.
Wow.
And so the reason we need so many is to meet all of those micronutrient requirements with the vitamins and minerals, because those things are the things that help our body function in terms of eyesight and, repairing functions in the body, doing day-to-day things that you'd have no idea about. Your quality of life goes up so much if you get enough veggies in. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
And so we want to aim to, meet all of those things, make sure we've got enough. Now, like, I can't talk exact numbers, like I said, because it's different for everyone, but everyone needs to make sure that, they've got carbs in their diet, they've got proteins, they've got fats, and then they've got veggies, fruits, meats or meat alternatives, dairy, and grains.
Yep.
Grains.
Yep.
And then, of course, I recommend drinking a lot of water as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you, because there's that, and then people, a lot of people think about changing their eating habits, going vegan, and all the different kinds of, eating strategies and habits you can have. Now, when people are thinking about changing, what advice would you give to them? And even when people have changed and they've got their habit down pat, what advice would you give to them? When thinking about that and when they're in a certain sort of phase of eating.
Look, so I see people who are at very different stages of their diet. Some people who have an absolutely horrible diet, meet none of their macronutrient requirements, none of their micronutrient requirements, and none of their food group requirements every day.
And that goes against the balanced diet. That's why I ask. Yeah, and I'm interested.
So the advice I'd give to anyone at whatever stage they're at with their diet is start small and take small steps. Okay, you can't try and just dramatically change your diet overnight. You have to allow yourself the small victories. You have to say, okay, this week I'm going to focus on eating less late night snacks. Okay, so I'm not going to eat after I have dinner. I'm not going to have that chocolate bar for 4 of the 7 nights of the week when I normally would. And you do that, you lock it down after 1 week, and that's a win. You put it in the bank, and then you continue that on. And next week you set yourself another goal. I'm going to add 3 serves of veggies across my day, 1 at lunch and 2 at dinner, or I'm just going to eat a piece of fruit for morning tea instead of the biscuit that I'd normally eat. So set very, very small goals that are in a positive direction. Tick those off every week. Allow yourself to be proud of yourself. But then the other thing I would also say that goes with that is don't beat yourself up if you slip up, because I see a lot of people who will, they'll not take the advice and they'll go a little bit fast. And then all of a sudden they'll have one day where, they're tired or they had a big day at work. They get home, all they feel like is junk food. They overindulge and completely beat themselves up, and they go back to their old bad dieting ways. Now, look, overindulging is fine. It happens to the best of us, sure. But don't beat yourself up, get back on the path. You're not a failure if you mess up once with your diet. You know, you've just got to take the small victories and be kind to yourself is definitely the advice I'd give.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question I want to ask you is, with people who choose to sort of have a low carb diet or low protein, or you don't really hear low protein quite often, but a lot of people try to be low carb now when they're trying to lose weight. Now, what are your what's your thoughts on that? Because I sort of feel like, especially if you're a sporting athlete, now you want to have the carbs to have the fuel in order to perform the activity well. And if you don't have the carbs, then how are you going to perform well? So what's your advice around that in terms of people who are trying to lose weight? I sort of, my opinion is, and my view, now I'm not an expert, but I sort of see that get your carbs in, and rather than trying to not have as many carbs to lose weight, do more exercise. So you're sort of doing it that way rather than trying to starve yourself of carbs and sort of take that away. Obviously, you don't want to go overboard. But what's your advice there in terms of people trying to lose weight and not have too many carbs?
Yeah, look, I completely agree with you there, Max. I am not a big fan of low carb diets at all. I think they mask the real problem. And so, if you're, especially if you're a sporting athlete, that's just never a good idea. That's just terrible. That's just obvious. But if you're just, an everyday person who just wants to lose weight, I can see what the appeal of low carb diets are to those people. But it's like the easy option out. It's the lazy way of doing it because, like you said, the more effective way is to still eat carbs and good carbs, but then use that to fuel their exercise. And, and losing weight is, it's a balance between diet and exercise. They're both parts of the picture. Now, I'd say diet is actually a bigger part in losing weight. But people who don't eat carbs don't fully understand our body's requirements because our body needs carbs to actually function, not just to perform athletically, but our brain needs the carbs to think day to day. And so the other thing is those people are often people that will have lots and lots of unhealthy carbs, like donuts and white bread and white pasta and all of that stuff. Whereas there's a big difference between having that and having the brown versions of that stuff and healthy, productive carbs, brown rice, brown pasta, wholemeal, whole grain bread, that sort of thing. That's what I have every single day.
Great point.
And so, that actually fuels your body better, but it will also help you lose weight if you switch from that other bad type of carbs to that type of carbs. So, cutting carbs out of the picture completely is just a terrible idea. And it's from people that don't understand how to go about the process of losing weight. They hear about these incredible results some people have had with these diets, and sure, they can have great weight loss results, but it's not actually healthy because they're losing other things, other important tissues in their body in the process. They're losing muscle mass because they're not exercising enough. They're just losing all the weight because they cut out carbs in their diet. Their brain's not functioning as well. So sure, they can lose weight, but it's at a terrible cost.
Absolutely. And I want to, that's obviously one issue I think that a lot of sporting athletes, well, not a lot, but there would be a number of sporting athletes with that issue and sort of falling into the trap of thinking that and sort of that becoming a bit of a detriment to themselves. But what are some other common issues you see in people and sort of their nutrition and eating habits?
Look, I'll touch on
some uncommon ones, like and ones like these for example, where people think low carbs is good, but it's actually not.
No, not at all. Look, I'll touch on a very to start with. I'll touch on a popular diet, the vegetarian, the vegan diet. Now,
Yeah.
funnily enough, I don't actually have a problem with it. I since I've done the nutrition course, I learned that vegetarians and vegans can get all of the required micronutrients, macronutrients, and the 5 food groups that they need. They still can without meat,
Yeah.
and without. I mean, they can't get dairy, obviously, if they're vegan. Which I would advise, not doing, but they can get all of the vitamins and minerals that they need. Now, the problem I have with it is that most vegetarians and vegans don't. And being on that sort of diet requires a lot more effort to make sure you're getting the required macronutrients, especially protein that you need, because a lot of them miss out on protein. They miss out on things like iron, which is obviously a micronutrient found in sort of meat sources, and that's why they have to take iron supplements. Now, if they tried hard enough with their diet, they could get iron from other sources that weren't meat, but they're just lazy and they don't work hard enough to get it from the whole food. And so I always recommend getting vitamins and minerals you need from your foods and your diets rather than taking supplements. You don't need supplements if you've got a perfect diet, in terms of vitamins and minerals at least. And so to get a bit back on track, some of the other common issues I would see, look, people have all kinds of crazy diets, but the number one motivator and the number one thing behind all of them is that people are lazy. People don't want to do the work. People don't want to commit to what it takes to losing weight or having a great sporting performance. It's not just your diet, it's your exercise as well. It's your sleep. It's all of those aspects, combined together into one. And so all of these diets and these fads that these people go on, they all stem from the fact that they're looking for the easy option out. They hear about this thing, wow, this is a great way to lose weight. And like I explained earlier, yeah, it might be a good way to lose weight, but at what cost? You're losing brain function and happiness, and you're losing muscle mass, which is a terrible idea. And so,
Yeah,
that's the problem I have, Max.
we will pause Connor Kennedy's interview just there, and we'll get back to it at the end of the show, where he spoke a little bit about how he changed his own eating habits and started eating very healthy. So stay tuned for that later on in the show. But now we're going to go to Patrick Morrow, where we spoke a little bit about soccer, tennis, and also a little bit about cricket. So I hope you enjoy that one. We have our next guest coming onto the Sports Hour, sports writer Patrick Morrow. How you going today, Patrick?
Very good, Max. Absolute pleasure to be on, mate. Once again, always.
And thanks for coming on, Patrick. We're going to talk a little bit of tennis today, a bit of soccer in the Champions League, and also a bit that's been happening in the cricket world. So we'll kick it off with Roger Federer, the superstar tennis player. Can you give us an update on him?
Mate, he's come back out of his knee operation, looking okay. Unfortunately, lost the second round to Georgian player in Nikolai Basilashvili, lost in the third set. Backed it up in the first round with an impressive win over Dan Evans. Roger did, but unfortunately could not win in the second round. But still looking positive on his comeback after his knee injury and surgery he had on his knee and hip. He'll probably keep pushing through the tournaments and get back to that world number one ranking. That's his goal. And at the moment, they all want to beat Novak, and he's the one who wants to do it. And it's great to see him return at 39 years old, Max. It's great to see him back in some form. Unfortunately, he couldn't get through the second round, but hopefully the return will come back smoothly in the next tournament, which I think they play in Rotterdam, or they get back on the clay circuit soon, so they'll start preparing for that. So it will be good to see him around.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned his age there, 39. It's good to hear that he's come back from a knee surgery and, as you said, he's moving around all right. He obviously got through one game and then ended up playing another one. So that's great news there for the superstar, the legend, Roger. And yeah, he's ranked 5th in the world or 6th It's got here on his, just searching him up, it's got his current ranking at number 5 as of the 9th of November last year. So he's still up there, and it's good to hear that he's sort of recovered well from this injury and he's back to playing, which is the main thing. So that's great to hear that news, Patrick. And we move on now to the soccer, where the Champions League, there's been a bit happening with the round of 16, different results and still some games to go in that.
Yeah. So some very interesting results. The most surprising one would be FC Porto, the side that Jose Mourinho team managed back in the day. They've got to the next stage for the first time since I think Jose won it with them. They defeated Juventus on away goals, even though Juventus won 3-2 in the second leg. They needed one more goal to do it, and unfortunately missed out on there. So Porto goes through. It's the first time I think Juventus will not be in the next stage of the Champions League since I think 2012. And it'll be the first time since Ronaldo will not be in the Champions League quarterfinals since 2006. So that's a long time ago. Also, Dortmund got through Sevilla 2-2 in the second leg, but led on aggregate score 5-4. Liverpool put their poor Premier League form away and did it quite comfortably against RB Leipzig. They won 2-0, and the aggregate is 1-4-0, so they'll be in the next stage. Another bummer as well for those Barcelona fans. They drew with PSG. Kylian Mbappe scored a penalty in the 30th minute, and then superstar Lionel Messi scored an absolute screamer of a goal to bring him back to 1-1, but unfortunately could not find the next gear to try and give him a run on the leg. Unfortunately, they lost on that leg. So PSG won 5-2.
And quite remarkable that game. Barcelona had 21 shots to 7 with 10 shots on target, 73% possession. They're tough games when teams just sit back after Mbappe scored the first goal in the 30th minute. So that was a tough game for Barcelona. But
Also, I'd say as well, will be the first time we'll not see Messi or Ronaldo since 2006. They've not made the next stage of the Champions League, so it's going to be a very odd Champions League tournament now. Also, to just give an update quickly for the Real Madrid fans out there, they'll play Atalanta 7 a.m. next Wednesday morning, St. Pat's Day. Manchester City will play Borussia Mönchengladbach. Bayern play Lazio in the second leg as well. That's on the Thursday, 18th of March, 7 a.m. And the big one, which will be Chelsea and Atletico Madrid, Thursday, the 18th of March. There's a bit of beef going there with Diego Simeone. They want to beat Chelsea. They're 1-0 down, so it'll be an interesting second leg there.
And Chelsea won the game before 1-0 against Atletico Madrid.
So it'll be an interesting one there. And probably the teams who are leading in this will probably do it, but the Atletico one probably will go the extra time and maybe even penalties. So I'll hope for the best there.
Who do you think will win the Champions League, Patrick?
Oh, well, everyone says every year they go, it's the big three in Barcelona, Real Madrid or Paris Saint-Germain, and the only one who's been able to do it in the past 5 to 6 years has been Real Madrid. Probably this time around, I see Man City maybe.
Chance, yeah.
Or Bayern. Everyone creeps up on Bayern, but I think Bayern's the one that you've got to look out for. They've still got a quality side, Robert Lewandowski. It's a tough one to take, Max, because the Champions League throws up these great stories of clubs running through, and a Porto could easily, do a Malaga and just, if anyone remembers, Malaga they made the semi-final of the Champions League and played an amazing tournament and nearly won it. So Porto could do the same thing. I just have this feeling, though, I think it could be Paris Saint-Germain's year. They've got out the big boys at Barcelona, who they choked to last year, so they got that out of the way. The hoodoo's gone. So I have a very sneaky suspicion it's going to be the same final as last year. Paris Saint-Germain versus Bayern, and probably Bayern will win the final in a tight one. Maybe someone like Lewandowski will score a winner on maybe the 92nd minute or something. So we'll see what happens.
That's exciting, and I look forward to tuning into that. The Champions League always brings up a big game. It's never short of a big game in the Champions League. So I'm looking forward to, it's already down to the business end. And it's getting down to some very tight clashes. So it's exciting to watch and something definitely to keep an eye on. So thanks for that update, Patrick. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, we'll go to the cricket now, where there's been a little bit happening in terms of dismissals. You don't often see obstruction in the field being given by umpires, but it was in a game between Sri Lanka and the West Indies. Can you tell us your take on it and explain a little bit what happened and how you saw it?
Well, the listeners will be going, how do you go out obstruction of the field? And the way you can only do that is if you manipulate, you stop the fielders from fielding the ball of some sort, or stop a catch or a run-out opportunity. And what happened was the Sri Lankan batsman was batting, and he's blocked the ball down. And as we know, if you're a cricket person, you know that if the ball's rolling towards the stumps, you kick it away because you're allowed to do that to protect your wickets. And it's quite odd. He's blocked it down, tried to go for a quick single, then running around circles. It's really odd. You have to watch the video to actually understand what happened. And in the process of that, he's been kicking the ball, is basically literally kicking the ball. It's really weird. And the bowlers are actually trying to go for the run out. So you honestly, and Max, you're probably going to have to show up the vision of it on the preview for the radio show, because I think people won't understand what I'm actually saying, because it's very weird.
Yeah.
And then the players appealed for obstruction, and to my eye, it looks an odd one, because I think the batsman probably couldn't do a lot in the process. So running backwards and forwards in that motion, it's a weird one. And then would the bowler get the ball into the run out? It was at the end of the pitch of the batting end, so the bowler has to run all the way to that end of the pitch to get it. So it's a tough one. And the umpire gave it out for obstruction. You probably probably need to search it up on YouTube and actually just watch it and see what happened and go from there, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm watching it right now, and from the footage, I can't tell whether the Sri Lankan batsman has seen the ball. So he's going back into his crease, and the ball's behind him, and he's walking backwards. And from the footage, I can't tell if he can see the ball. And he's the only one that knows whether he saw the ball and then sort of stepped on it, which in that case, that would be obstructing the field. But my gut feel is that he's stepping backwards, and he's realised he's stepping backwards, and accidentally he's stepped on top of the ball, and because he's done that, well, he hasn't really stepped on it, but he's knocked the ball as he was going backwards to get back into his crease, and that's moved the ball and then stopped Kieran Pollard from picking it up and being able to throw it at the stumps for a run out. My gut feel, though, is I don't think the Sri Lankan batsman has seen the ball. I think he's accidentally sort of kicked it, which if it's an accident, I don't know if that's actually obstructing the field.
Yeah, I know, and it's not. It doesn't look like he was deliberately doing it as well. At the same time, the only real obstruction of field I've heard is the one they had in the Big Bash a few years back, and I think Alex Ross was given obstruction of field, and that was a bit more easier. I think it was to do with the run-out decision. I think they looked like he was guarding the stumps for the run-out.
Yeah.
The old-fashioned take the body blow type of sort of thing. So this one was a bit more weird and awkward. And the West Indies, they always seem to have unusual things happen over there. They've had some dodgy run-out decisions not being given, and this one just adds to the more peculiar decisions in cricket. It's a weird one to have, and I think as an umpire, as someone who umpires cricket, I'd probably my understanding of the law would probably say it'd be given not out, just due to the fact of looking from it, the batsman I don't think knew where the ball was. So it's a weird one. But the more odd one was as well, Max, as you and I were discussing off air, was the celebrations for the wicket. I don't know how important. I looked at the scores, and it wasn't a very important wicket. So it's a very odd one to get given out on.
Yeah. Well, the decision was given, and the Sri Lankans they sort of celebrated. The West Indies they celebrated, but they celebrated when it was out, which is kind of fair enough. Well, in the context of the game, Sri Lanka were 1 for 112. So it was a big wicket, and the guy that was dismissed was on 55. That's Danushka from Sri Lanka. He was dismissed on 55, which is a pretty good score, and that brought in 2 new batters. So it sort of was a little bit of a big wicket in terms of the game. So the West Indies, they celebrated after they got the decision from the third umpire. It was a funny one, and it definitely got a bit of airtime, that dismissal, and everyone's got their views. But at the end of the day, it's so close that the only person that knows whether it's out, I believe, is the Sri Lankan batter, because I don't know if he could see the ball behind him as he and then went on to knock it, or if he couldn't see the ball and then he accidentally knocked it.
Yeah.
So that's the question.
Yes, and I'll just say this now, Max. I'm just reading the law in Laws of Cricket. So it's Law 37, obstructing the field. 37.1, out, obstructing the field. Either a batsman is out, obstructing the field, if, except in the circumstances of Law 37.2, while the ball is in play. Now, the ball was in play, right? So he/she willfully attempts to obstruct or distract the fielding side by word or action. So a very odd one. Did the batsman deliberately do it? You know, it's a weird one. Yeah.
Well, that's the word there, willfully. Did he willfully? Did he do it sort of on purpose, or was it an accident? And that's the question.
Yeah. So it's going to be a bit of a debate for a while, I think, Max. And I'd love to hear what someone, one of the umpires would say, a district umpire or the umpire who's officiating the game. Paul Wilson, I'd love to ask him, what was your process in doing that? Because I think it's a very gutsy call to give that out. So, but fair credit to it. They thought it was out. So you can't complain from there. Everyone's going to have different opinions, and I think that's a good thing in the game of cricket as well. It's great we've got that very interesting little rules that we don't see a lot do come into play.
Yeah, and you talk about the rules there, and it's interesting anyway. People have got their opinions about this, and even if you ask an umpire and then you go on to ask another umpire, you still might get 2 different opinions, which is funny. But speaking of the rules, and you see different sports and the rules. Now, cricket doesn't really change their rules, but we've seen it recently in T20 cricket. The Big Bash, they brought in the power surge, for example, the X Factor player. England, they've got their own 100 competition, which is sort of their version of T20 cricket. What are your thoughts on, these different rules and countries bringing in these different, rules? AFL, for example, has got, they change the rules quite often, typically over the last decade. But what's your view on cricket doing it, and where do you see that?
I see it's more to do with the commercial aspect of it. The bash boost point, all those type of things in the Big Bash especially, is just to drum up the final series, to give people a half interest in, they've got to chase down 60 off 60 balls to get the extra point. So it gives some interest to that. If you ask the players what they want to do, they probably want to win the game, not win the bonus point. But it's just all part and parcel of the way we live. We want to change it every year. We want to have something different and new and fresh. So it gives more interest to the game. The 100, that's an interesting concept. That format of cricket will be, I think this year they're going to play it. So that'd be great, and hopefully they can get crowds with the whole post-COVID situation. So that'd be great to see. But that will be a very interesting one in terms of how there'll be rules conducted. The rules are actually quite complex. So in terms of how the bowler can bowl, he can only bowl this so many balls, and the batsman can do this or whatever. So it's an interesting concept there. But I think the overall argument of changing laws of cricket, I think, needs to be discussed in a healthy discussion, and also one of actually discussing what needs to be changed or what needs to be properly changed, not just because of commercial use. And I think maybe other sports have kind of just changed the rules to suit the monetary idea of it, and probably the AFL for changing the marking rule. I think they've just done it because we want to see the game free flowing. Well, we've always been taught, man, the mark, you jump up and down and all that. So in cricketing terms, it's a bit like changing the way you bat. You have to hit the ball to still be batting. If they did that, that'd be an outrage in cricket.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting way of thinking. I think these new different laws and different formats, they'll make the game different, and probably in 10 or 15 years' time, they'll come the norm in any real cricketing tournament. Maybe just Test cricket will just remain that traditional type of thing, and everything else will kind of flow to another type of cricket. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the way it all plays out. And when they make changes and it's good, like I thought the power surge was a pretty good change, and I think it was exciting. I personally liked it. But it's when they make changes and it doesn't work where you're like, oh, come on, don't do it. But I think that's just the nature of it. And, we can't just be happy when something good happens in a rule change. And then when something goes wrong, everyone fires up because it's not going to be good all the time. You got to sacrifice a bit in order to get a little bit. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. I don't mind them experimenting a bit, but at the same time, I want a bit of consistency. But it's the time period we're in, and as you said, sometimes the commercial aspect of sport is so important because that's what keeps it going.
100%.
Financially. So you gotta sacrifice a bit in order to take steps forward. That's probably what it comes down ultimately. So it's interesting. But Patrick, thanks very much for your thoughts today as always, and really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, Max. Great to be on again, and we'll talk soon.
And we thank Patrick Morrow for coming on as always to share his thoughts. Interesting conversation today around the different sports and what's happening in the sporting world. So we thank him for coming on. Now we're going to go back to Connor Kennedy's interview where we spoke a little bit about nutrition, and what's coming up next is quite interesting, where he spoke about how he changed his eating habits and became a health king, really, in the world of eating. So tune into that. It's quite interesting, and I hope you enjoy it. And Connor, you've been through it. You've managed to. I remember you used to eat donuts every day. Only joking.
Yeah, when I was probably 4 years ago, Max, when I was a kid, I definitely did. I was a sweet tooth. And actually, I wasn't sure if you were going to ask me about myself, but for about 2.5 years now, I haven't been eating junk food at all. And for about a year now, it's pretty crazy, but my diet is very regimented. I wouldn't recommend doing what I do. Like, you have to be kind of crazy. But I have the same 5 meals every single day. My meals are planned out. I do my cooking kind of once a week. They're all easy to prepare. I freeze or put them in the fridge. And I've planned out all of the macronutrients, micronutrients, and food groups that I need every single day. If my goals change a little bit, like I want to put on a bit of muscle or I want to lose a bit of fat, then I'll alter how many carbs I'm eating. Now, I won't cut out carbs, like I never cut out carbs, but I'll just add a little bit more rice to a meal or take a little bit more rice from a meal. So those are the sort of variables I play with. So that's just a little bit about me. I actually did make that decision overnight 2.5 years ago to eat healthy. I haven't touched junk food since. I don't know how I do it, to be honest. But I just don't get it. So
and that's something I wanted to ask you about that. Like, how easy has it been for you to change and make that change? Because you mentioned before people are lazy out there to do it. But how easy did you find it making the change and sticking with it and keeping it going for as long as you have? It's been 2 years. How easy was it?
Oh, yeah. It's been almost 3 years. Look, to be honest, it was way easier than most people, who go on a diet for a week because for me, Sorry, Max.
Can you tell us, so you say it's easy. Can you tell us what those changes were? And like, just to explain to us in real what those changes were, those little changes or big changes, what were they? And like, because it was that easy, as you said, it was easy. So what were those? What can you tell us the degree of change you had to make in order to change? Yeah.
Look, I'll answer two questions there. The first is that it was easy for me, but I wouldn't say what I did would be easy for everyone else. Now, the reason it was easy for me, because I had a big degree of change, which I'll tell you about in a sec. And the reason it was easy for me is because I thought about the person I wanted to be, and I suddenly realized that that's not what I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't going to accept that sort of standard for myself and for my life. So I made the decision then and there that I was done. I was done with eating all the junk food. I was now going to become the best version of myself and allow my body the chance to become the best version. So I made that decision black and white, and I've stuck to it ever since. And so because I've had such a driving force behind it, that's why it's been easier for me. But the changes, in terms of the degree of changes I made 2.5 years ago, I went from eating a lot of junk food, a lot. I'd have quite a bit every day. I had a pretty terrible diet. I didn't hit any of my 5 food group requirements or macronutrients requirements outside of that. So I went from that to completely dropping all junk food straight away. And I ate the best way I knew how at that stage of my life. But it wasn't until last year, almost a year ago, when I did the nutrition course, that I then was educated as to what the perfect diet would look like and what my requirements are for the macronutrients and micronutrients and 5 food groups. And so since then, I went from eating the best way I knew how. I mean, I had a lot of mistakes in my diet still. I thought I was still disciplined. I didn't eat junk food, but I ate way too much meat. I didn't eat enough veggies, and, a couple of other little things. And so when I realized what the perfect diet would be, bang, I changed it straight away. I've been on it ever since. I never look back. I never get tempted by anything. I don't have any junk food around, People offer it to me all the time, and I just say no. And people that know me just know I don't do that. I hold higher standards for myself. And so, it's just who I am, Max. It's funny, it's just not the thing I do. It's the standards you set for yourself.
Absolutely. And you're spot on. It's about who you are and what you believe in. And there's a book that I read that backs that all the way, that it's about your identity rather than what your motivation might be. It's about who you are and what you believe in. And there's a beautiful paragraph that I just want to quickly read out of James Clear, his book called Atomic Habits. And it goes like this. True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with one is that it becomes part of your identity. Anyone can convince themselves to visit the gym or eat healthy once or twice, but if you don't shift the belief behind the behavior, then it is hard to stick with the long-term changes. Improvements are only temporary until they become part of who you are. So, that just proves
that's bang on, Max. Yeah. And to go with that, I think a really positive way of thinking about making those, healthy changes in someone's life. For example, looking at how you go to the gym. People in a bad frame of mind that won't stick to it forever, they'll tell themselves, I've got to work out so I can look good. But people in a good frame of mind, like myself, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but this is just how I think. I go to the gym because that's who I am. It's not I go to look good. It's not, but it's who I am. It's the standard I set for myself. It's, it's just what I do. It's just me. And it's the same with my eating. It's the same with my sleep. It's the same with, cold showers, with my breathing, with meditation, yoga. It's just who I am. And so if you try to change your habits by saying, I have to do this for a certain goal outside of myself, that's a bad road. That's, a setup for failure. But if you try to change your habits with that intrinsic force, telling yourself, this is who I am. Now, I set higher standards for myself and this is my identity. That's some powerful stuff there, Max. And that's how you really create change.
Absolutely. And that's a terrific message. And Connor, it's been way longer than what I thought it would be. But because it's been so good, it's been worth it. So thanks very much for coming on and sharing your thoughts once again on the Sports Hour.
Oh, look, thank you so much for having me, Max. I'm sorry if I ramble on. I'm passionate about this sort of stuff and helping people become the best version of themselves. So it's a pleasure to be here.
And we thank Connor Kennedy for coming on to share his interesting thoughts there. It was great to get him on to share his thoughts on nutrition, a field that he's got great knowledge in. So we really appreciate that. And as well as that, we thank all our other guests who came on today to share their thoughts and get an insight into the different sports and everything that's going on right now in the world of sport. I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, feel free to jump on our Twitter page at SportsHourFM, give it a follow, give it a like, and stay tuned on that account to keep up with everything. Also, feel free to like the Brimbank Neighbourhood House page, which is on Facebook, to get the live show there, and also you can tune into the other shows on Brimbank Live via that page. And also, most importantly, jump on the Live FM Making Media page, which is on Facebook, and you can also find the Making Media page on Twitter, run by Ralph Barba. He does a great job and really helps put together all these shows on Brimbank Live. So I hope you enjoyed the show today, and thanks for tuning in to the Sports Hour on Brimbank Live on Live FM.
With thanks to the City of Brimbank across our neighbourhood and the world, the Sports Hour with Max Hatzoglou on Brimbank Live on Live FM.